I certainly learnt from that little session that I've got to cut some intros. There's a lot of bullshit in there, Chris, thank you, on my lead-up of... I didn't realise I did all that shit, thank you. Look, we're going to have this conversation. I'm not sure it's a setup, because we just come after the hardcore business guy, Brian, which was, now we're going to try and seem like we're credible. We've got a big mission here to work through what... the impact of creative is having, what our two panellists here are doing. I'm going to, I look really groovy reading off my phone. That's because the printer wouldn't work this morning, so hence why I'm going to look like I'm tech savvy. Let me just read the first bit and then I'm better at riffing. But who's not talking ideas, innovation and creativity as a catalyst for competitive advantage? Rhetorically, most of us here would back the line, but who's measuring it beyond creative score proxies and brand lift metrics? Jess Gilby says News Corp is seeing a lot of briefs coming through from brands hunting an edge via creativity and ideas, but in reality what ends up happening in many brands are defaulting to spend channels that optimise to the short term across performance skewing platforms. Call it retail or performance marketing if you like. Jess has some observations, case studies, and I think some Mutinex data that should challenge what defines creativity and ideas and the results that come with it. I hope to hear what these new data and stats you've got, Jess. It's going to blow the world apart, I think, maybe. Kia's Dean Norbiato, who, by the way, when I spoke to him last week, this is a classic, was being very creative on a Kia shoot, aspiring to be a world-class marketer and a film director, or not, actually, he wasn't trying to do that, is facing that exact challenge at present, trying to be a little different with his retail strategy to convert car buyer interest from signals to action, i.e. for dealers that means more humans on the lot. And I think if you've seen anything about the auto industry in the last 12 months, it's extraordinary, really, isn't it, Dean, how the Chinese players are making you exercise some muscle and work hard for what...
I haven't noticed.
You haven't noticed, yeah. Well, I think I will get to it, but I think Kia is one of the few that's actually got a little bit of share gain. Have I got that right on the VFAX stuff? Yeah, most people are going backwards, so there's a really interesting play going on there, and we'll talk through that. We've got 30 minutes to solve the universal commercial creative conundrum, so wish us well. We'll see how we go with this. But to Jess first, maybe it would be good, you see a broad spectrum of advertisers, large, small. What are you seeing in the market? What market behaviour are you observing at the moment, Jess? We talked a little bit up top about the demand for creative and innovation, but maybe doesn't follow through. What are you seeing in the market?
I just want to be really clear when I talk about creativity, I'm going to talk about it more than creative today, and that's probably because of the role that I am in. For the last 2 years, we saw an abundance of briefs coming through for culture. Every marketer was seeking culture, and this year it's advocacy. And when I distill that down, the themes are still the same. They come back to connection. And how you drive connection with consumers has really kind of changed over the last couple of years. I mean, any of the large major effectiveness bodies are telling us all. We all know it in the room, right? The IPA, System 1, WARC. Actually, WARC summarise it really well, right? They say in their 2023 paper, they said, we're producing a lot more, but what we're producing has a lot less brand building stretch. And I'm probably going to say something that's a bit controversial because of my roles being digital, but I think that, personalisation is really the antagonist to creativity, right? You're personalising to the nth degree and creating so much more. You miss out on that shared community or that cultural connection with consumers together. The System 1 or the IPA research actually does it really well. They talk about how there's been a 50% drop in emotionally led creative over the last decade. And so what we're really seeing is brands seeking cultural or advocacy-based connection. But the responses when you're going back with these ideas, there's probably the biggest drop-off when it comes to following through with that, because there's a nervousness. They're like, we want that short-term result, and they can't get off the drug of what is driving short-term performance. But what we are starting to see with some of the data we can talk to as we continue on is that the ad stock or the lasting impact that you can have from some of those bigger creative ideas, well, they have lasting impact that's beyond the short-term performance. They actually end up being more efficient and more effective.
But just talk through advocacy, Jess, define that, because you are talking beyond sort of an ad format here to sort of cultural engagement, like you talked, like you referenced, and I think there's a few good case studies, but it's outside what most would consider to be conventional creative executions, perhaps.
Yeah, I talk about a lot, like build an idea system rather than an asset kit. And we've done a lot of work in that space. I'm going to probably reference NRMA Insurance recently. They had a really big problem penetrating Queensland. They could outshout them, outspend them. They were like, Queenslanders love sport. Let's sponsor the Broncos and the Lions. Let's really affiliate ourselves with the state of Brisbane. And no matter what they did, they couldn't cut through and penetrate the market. Consumers just weren't buying it. And so they gave us this insight around how do we get through to Queenslanders. And when we worked really together on understanding Queenslanders, the biggest thing that brought them together was the state of Queensland. That was the insight. We gave that to our editorial team and they landed on what is the biggest thing that Queenslanders care about right now? The Bruce Highway. Does anyone know the Bruce Highway? Has anyone driven the Bruce? It's the most dangerous road in Australia. And, you know, one thing that all Queenslanders across the country care about, even if you're outside of Queensland, was fixing the Bruce Highway. And collectively, you know, with NRMA Insurance and the Courier Mail and the whole suite of News Australia assets, they brought together about saving the Bruce. Saving the Bruce became an idea that didn't just live on our platforms. It was an idea network that gave them multifaceted campaign format activation across multi-touch points. And the results are amazing. We won for the consumer. The state of Queensland now has $7.2 billion worth of government funding. That's advocacy in its truest form. Lobbying for something that needs to happen for the consumer that then has a halo effect on the brand. You know, they've lifted their purchase intent by 13% and their favourability continues to move on. I mean, it's up 47%. So that's what I mean when I'm talking about advocacy. Build an ideas system, not just an asset kit that can come and live and breathe through in every touch point you have. Retailers, what are you doing in store that connects to your idea that in your marketing efforts? Because when you build that, that's not something your competitors can copy in a week.
What I want to know, though, is how scalable is that? You've got a few other case studies as well. Talk us through that. But can this work? Can this work for every category, any brand in a category? And can you find something that lands as well as Bruce? Bruce was good.
Bruce was good, right? We're not always going to get $7.2 billion worth of funding. We're already in enough debt in this country, so I'm sure we're not going to get into any more. So I won't just quote off things that have made massive wholesale change for consumers, right? But, you know, okay, a piece of work that we did with Subway recently. Subway have a great creative platform. Size Matters is something that lives and breathes across out of home, big screen TVs. And we worked really hard on understanding how can we take that creative platform and make it relevant in our ecosystem. And so we really pushed the boundaries with distinctive formats that we could activate across the network. And you know, what they've seen is really quite an incredible result. You know, the distinctive assets we know through some Mutinex data have a 20 to 80% lift on baseline. And we can see that in our own data. With the Subway campaign, we had about a 31% exposure to conversion rate. So of being exposed to 1 to 2 ads on this Subway campaign across our network, 31% of those consumers went in store to make a purchase. Brian would be happy. I know my numbers, so I'm knowing my shit, right?
How profitable though, Jess?
It was profitable. Don't worry. 10% sales lift. I know my P&L too. We can go down that road if you want. But it doesn't always have to be the big idea that's lobbying for change, but what you can see is when you've got a creative platform that can stretch and expand into different channels and ecosystems, the results are really impactful.
So what happened? This is the one where you were getting, it was a lunchtime dilemma, wasn't it?
Yeah. Sub-hours, we called it. Sub-hours. Right. You know, reaching people between a time window, bigger formats to feed into the Size Matter campaigns, changing our ad formats to fit in with the creative platform, and just making sure that the consumer, it stood out to the consumer. It was highly distinctive and unmissable across those lunchtime trigger window hours, and we brought it to life across the entire network. And so give us give your partners a challenge that goes beyond reach and frequency and how to deliver value. Because if you bring your creative platform to your partners, I'm not just talking about News Australia here, don't worry, but if you take it to them, they will really meet your challenge and meet your brief and find ways to stretch it out that's native to their own environments.
Just very quickly on the subway, though, I'm trying to. What was the difference? Was it the timing? What was it? Because what I've got now is some different ad formats and perhaps times, but there was something different about. Was it advocacy again, or was it this is a executional creative campaign?
It was executional that linked to their overarching matters. Size matters, and it's all about their product being bigger. They say bigger is better, and so that size matters platform and bringing it to life with making the formats bigger, standing out more, and doing things that were more unique, that went beyond the format and what was in the format, but actually changing the format to meet the need of the platform itself.
Okay, so what's the receptivity and the receptivity and appetite from brands to do this? Some of it sounds pretty difficult or more complex than perhaps what a straight up campaign in an advertising context might be. Is there any? Do you get pushback, or where is it at?
Absolutely, every day. It takes effort, and ease of trade. We're all doing more with less in this room. Like there's every part of the media value chain is doing more with less right now from where we were a couple of years ago, and so doing what I've spoken about, the NRMA insurances, the Subways of the world, it takes effort. But the impact and what it does for the halo effects and the longevity, I think that's worth it.
Yeah. You got one more quick one, or are we?
Go.
You got one more quick case study, or you're done? We can move on.
We'll move on for now.
Righto. So then we'll come back to that perhaps, because I think you've got something stored there. So the data you've got around Mutinix is showing, does the data that you've got from Mutinix, is it apply to what you're talking about now in terms of your advocacy? Is it the creative impact? And what is that data first, Jess? I guess we should get that.
Yeah. So I think creativity at the moment is a bit of the unknown multiplier in most M&M models. I'm sure Henry, Matt and the team at Mutinix have got that covered, or they're working on something that will fit the needs of what we see. We all know in this room creativity drives impact. In some of the tests that we've been doing and some of the Mutinix data that we're seeing is that creative or idea-led campaigns have 2 to 3 times ad stock, so impact beyond the campaign activation. So getting longevity beyond your investment, super important when you're talking about efficiency. And some of the other retail trials that they're doing, they can see up to 250% lifts in revenue. So I think if we're going to talk about the cost equation from the upfront versus the impact and its ability to drive results, the cost equation is starting to be modelled out and can show its true value.
Dean, what do you're fairly new to the Mutinix platform. I think it came through some initiatives that they did with Nine and Co. Yep. What's your early experience? Well, there's so many questions I want to ask about what a newbie does with Mutinix, but in the creative context, what does it? Do you get any visibility on that yet? And how do you manage that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's something that was probably a focus for us going into partnership with Mutinix, was trying to understand the impact of creativity on our marketing efforts. I think Jess articulated it perfectly. It's kind of the unknown, but it has the ability to multiply and cheat effectively your marketing principles, that they're built at, say, at a base level. If you have something that's creative, that can be well above that. It's trying to define that, build a case around that to then be more creative, or at least give breathing room for creative, or breathing room for risk, to take a risk creatively, because we're getting so homogenous and safe and moving into the middle. And I was quite inspired by Henry's opening gambit about, last click and moving away from the marketing I feel that matters, and creativity is at the core of that. So what the platform allows us to do is to understand a bit better the impact. Is it perfect yet? No. Does it give us a step forward from where we were without it? Absolutely. And like I said, a primary focus. We've just started, got the first cut of results, but we have seen a significant impact on good creative, big creative, versus your standardized, dare I say, performance-based creative, if I was to be binary between the two.
Yeah. Well, so we were talking earlier with Jess about market behaviour, and I'm really interested in your take on what's going on in auto. You've got the Chinese EV blitz on market share and sales volumes. They're not necessarily highly creative in their market presence, but they're storming sales. So does it challenge this argument around brand and creative for you as a marketing and a feature film director as well? But the issue here is that you've been very strong for a number of years on brand, right? We've talked about this before.
Absolutely.
Very vocal and not moving into necessarily too much retail mix. Are you having to change that now?
Yeah, look, there's external factors, and that's another thing that feeds into our Mutinex model is the external factors. So looking at a holistic picture of market, we were operating very much during COVID times, which were an absolute boom for the auto industry, where you could focus lion share into brand, and we took advantage of that opportunity. The market conditions now are far departed from what they were in 20, 21, 22. And we need to adapt as a business, and we need to use data to help define where we go. And if that means moving into more of a retail ecosystem for customers, then we will do that. But we will take the same principles that we've garnered during the last 5 years on creativity and distinctiveness about our brand, and imbuing them through our retail comms. Retail can be seen as a negative connotation when you say, oh my God, it's not brand, I can't make the big ad. You can still be creative in that sense. And I think opportunity, it's seeing opportunity, not seeing a challenge. As marketers, that's on us. There's opportunity in absolutely everything that we do, and trying to define what we stand for and how we can enter into that and use creativity to garner that magic A word of attention and then get conversion. And the thing I love about the Mutinex, it is not about necessarily attribution, but contribution to the business. So absolutely getting close to your numbers, absolutely understanding the impact you will have in every one of your businesses to the bottom line. Fundamental. Absolutely fundamental in having a seat at any table. And I think the first couple of presentations have been so bang on about doing that.
So to the earlier question though, if you think about what you've been doing and what Kia and some other autos have been doing in terms of that brand investment through and post-COVID, and now we've seen a massive price-led blitz. There's also talk that the quality of the cars aren't too bad from China and these electric vehicles. But what about that argument that says invest in brand, it protects you on price, or it gives a bit of protection on price and a whole bunch of other things long term? What we're seeing now with the Chinese EVs coming through with very tactical plays and a price-led product strategy, does it implode the notion of brand for the long term? Because there's a lot of autos that are in decline in share. Maybe not you. What are you up 0.5 or 1 or something like that?
Yeah, in a flat to down market. And look, it comes down to in Australia, we will sell 1 to 1.2 million cars every year. We've been doing that for the last decade plus. So in terms of the amount of available opportunity for brands and for OEMs, absolutely you could see and have your blinkers on and chase a dollar figure and be very price-led, or see the total market and see where your opportunity lies. You need to absolutely be cognizant and respectful of all competition. We have cars that start from $19,000 to $144,000 and everything effectively in between. So you need to respect your competition, but the work that we've done to build somewhat of a moat around our brand from where we were to where we are now sees us usher in a completely new customer from where we were in 2018, 2017, 2019, where our average purchase was 27 grand per vehicle. It's now 47 grand per vehicle. That's a materially different customer who can afford what they can afford through that as well. So it means that you need to respect what they're doing, but it's not going to completely change what we're doing as a business. And we've built up some really good principles based on data that we're now getting greater inputs fed in from the work we're doing with Mutinex to understand what works and effectively what doesn't, to then be a lot more effective. But at the core of everything that what we've cracked is, I think, giving time for creativity. I still want to harp back to creativity being on trial because I see that as a huge brand differentiator. And yes, they are leading in price, but if you are only built on price, then you will only be as good as the price that you can lead with, and there's always new competition coming in. A fact for everyone out there who doesn't love facts. So, 71 automotive manufacturers versus 42 automotive manufacturers. One of those is Australia, and one of those is the US of A. What do you think is 71 versus 42? You're wrong. Australia has 71 different automotive companies. The US of A has 42. 350 million people versus 27. We are so hyper competitive in this market that being distinct and standing out is absolutely paramount.
Yeah, I've heard those numbers. 72 or 78, but basically massive. It was highest, I think, one of the highest in the world in terms of per capita of brands. So if we go back to maybe a year ago or 2 years ago, Dean, and how you were trying to evaluate the creative impact and contribution to it, how were you doing it? Was it a finger in the air? And what do you want from Mutinex next? I guess I think there's some stuff coming on this. There's some tweaks to the model, but what do you want to see? What would help?
I mean, we were doing a lot of benchmarking back 2 or 3 years ago against previous campaigns to determine an uplift with, comparable spend and then the results. But it was very tricky when you have like I said, $19,000 car versus a $65,000 electric vehicle. And then we had signals coming in from another one of our tech partners that were determining the traffic to a website based on ad impression across all of our channels. So we were then using that as a proxy for success. And then we were seeing the diminishing return of an ad and its ad stock impact. So it was very just regimented, but we were trying, and I think we get a lot more of a complete picture now that is a lot more automated. As marketers, I don't know one marketer who would say out there that they have enough time. Does anyone have enough time? No one has enough time. So having a program that can anticipate and work and understand that, so they're feeding you information and prompting you, and that's where we get into the agentic component of it prompting you with, have you thought about this? And let's look at this as an option. Can we optimize here? That's when we really start sizzling when it comes to AI, in my opinion, when we actually are cognizant of us marketers who all seem to collectively not have enough time.
So you've mentioned AI. We have to go there for a fraction. AI and creative for you, where on the spectrum do you expect it to go, and what is the results? What does the outputs look like on that?
Look, different elements. Who wants to play a game? Who wants to play? Okay.
Let's play. I'm up for it.
Who has a mobile phone? Who has a GPT app? Who has it? Can they get their phones out? Let's get them out. Get your phone out. Open up your favourite app, whichever one. Maybe it's ChatGPT. Now put in. Let's do a prompt. Let's see how creative we can get, because there's somewhat limitations. If you come up with a tagline for new tennis tournament, yeah. Let's see what we bubble out. Can someone give me a tagline?
Game, set, electric.
Oh. Game, set, electric. Oh, that's so average. Like, that's effectively the homogenous middle, which is the anti of the creativity, which stands out. So I think there is an ability to utilise, but to be truly creative, I still believe in the level of uniqueness of an idea. And unfortunately, if we rely on those platforms and we're talking about creativity, yet I don't think we're going to get there via that path. Obviously, it will evolve and change, and as we get more iterative and intuitive, but once it can start thinking unique ideas, then I think it could be a tool. But at the moment, I'll back humans in that space.
Quickly, your take on this, Jess. And I looked at the time and go, right, we've got to wind this up. We're at 10% through. So if you want to hang around for another hour, we can keep going. Not AI from your perspective, Jess. Is there anything going on? And the other one I want to add to that as the wind up, as the closeout, is: have you done any auto stuff in this advocacy stuff? Like, what can auto work in an advocacy context?
I haven't yet, but there's many roads that need fixing that I'm sure we can find natural alignment from, right?
I love the humour.
I completely agree about the creativity piece and the using and the application. Homogenous is a great word. So let me take a different lens. I was at an IAB publisher forum last week, and there was this glaring stat put up on the screen that 51% of all traffic now is non-human. And I was like, wow, it's not surprising, but it kind of, you look at it and you go, shit, we've got to serve two masters. And you know what we're seeing, and I'm just going to talk it from a content or what we do in the publishing space. When you produce like beautiful pieces of content for human engagement, right? Beautiful big images, different text fonts used, quotation mark bubbles. It's mainly done in JavaScript. The crawlers hate it, but it's really good for human engagement. Like it's something that really engages the user. But if you're wanting to then be cited, because we've got this other master, the 51% of traffic, we've got to do some bland, very rigorous kind of HTML5, very informative content to be crawled. And so we're working with clients and partners to really understand how do we have this one concept or this one message we have to say, and how do we produce it for humans and get them engaged, time spent, beautiful images, really luxury kind of experience, versus these crawlers to make sure you're cited. And realistically, that's gonna really change how we think about production, especially in the content space, to get brand, meaning, message, and product out there.
Well, there's about 3 different threads I'd love to pursue, but we are out of time. So I think what we'll do is wait for Mutinex's model lift on what they're doing with creative, because it is coming. Do you think, Dean? Is that what you've heard?
Oh, definitely. This afternoon.
I've heard whispers too. So we just wait, because really what we need is some more data, I think, by the sounds of it, to answer the question about which creative does impact. We know that it does. It's how and what works for a category and a brand. So there was one more question I was going to ask, and I'll throw it out there, Dean, just because it was very interesting to hear. You know, we talked about Mark Ritson, who's in Cannes this year. I was there, heard him in his prowess talk about staying with the same consistency of message, same brand, same messaging, stick with it, play long. And on the flip side, we had all the digital players, Jess, but social media saying actually the algorithms are rewarding new stuff every day, and how do you stay with the same, how do you keep consistency in a social context where the algorithms are actually rewarding fresh and new? And so there's a conflict there. Have you got a 10-second thought on that?
I mean, I'm not going to get in an academic knife fight with Mark Ritson, that's for one. So he's right. But I think if you have the capacity to freshen up ads, and it was within your capacity, and you know your P&L, and it's available and possible, I'm personally a supporter of it based on the results that we've seen early. So far.
Changing it up a bit more?
Not necessarily super frequently, but not letting it sit and marinate for 4 years. Yeah. Right. So like a year, if I was to give a arbitrary date almost. If you have the capacity to freshen up, the results that we then see of the spike of the new campaign and then the new ad stock created and the perception of your brand from that new moment, from what we've seen with the information that we have filtering into our analysis, is that's the path that we're going to continue down.
Well, we'll watch that and watch for the model announcements, because we might have some more to play with. Put your hands together for Jess and Dean. Thank you. And Chris Savage, thank you.